The city thinned the further they went, traffic easing, lights stretching wider between blocks. Ray didn't turn, but his hand moved once along the seat. The other hand was already there. Ray placed his hand over it. The taxi slowed and pulled to the side, the door closing behind them as someone brushed past, shoulder catching lightly before continuing on. This is where nights don't end. Chapter 4. The night turns. The studio main light had been turned off, leaving only the glow from the monitor and the soft spill from the lamp near the back wall. Ray sat angled toward the screen, one leg folded slightly under the chair, his hand resting near the trackpad as he moved through the images. He adjusted one slightly. His phone lit up beside him. He didn't reach for it right away. The screen dimmed once, then lit again, the vibration light against the table. He reached for the phone without breaking his line of sight on the screen. Jiho sent a photo, close up, too close to be accidental. His eyes angled toward the camera, one brow lifted. Do you guys see the wrinkle? Ray looked at it for a second, then typed back. No. The typing bubble appeared almost immediately. Look again. You're fine. A second message came in before he locked the phone. I swear it wasn't there last week. Ray let out a small breath. Then he set the phone down beside the keyboard and leaned forward, his gaze returning to the monitor. A runner mid-stride, foot just off the ground, body leaning forward without losing control. He zoomed in slightly, adjusted the crop. The phone lit once more. Sungil had joined. Ray, how's it going with Do-yoon? Ray rested his thumb against the edge of the phone. All good. Hey Sungil, do you see the wrinkle? You seeing him this weekend? Sungil ignored Jiho. Ray scrolled once through the image in the monitor. A moment passed. Then it buzzed again. We should do a double date. Ray shifted slightly in his chair. Guys, I'm working. On what? Sports model shoot. There was a brief pause. Then, when are you shooting me? Ray glanced at the screen again, then back to the phone. Next week. I'll find time. You've been saying that for months. I mean it. Let's find time. Good. I'll hold you to it. Sungil didn't push it further. Jiho cut back in. Hold on. See it now? Same angle, slightly different lighting. Ray looked at it longer this time, then typed. Still no. I'm booking a facial. You don't have a wrinkle. Ray set the phone down again, letting the conversation continue without him. The phone kept buzzing. He reached back again. I can do Saturday afternoon. Good. Double date it is. You guys figure it out. I'm out. Ray opened a new text. You free Saturday afternoon? He sent it to Do-yoon. The reply came faster than expected. I can make time. Ray held the screen a second longer, then typed. I'll text you the place. Sounds good. Ray didn't add anything else. The group chat continued underneath, something from Sungil, but Ray didn't scroll back up. He locked the phone and set it down beside him. Do-yoon was there first in the restaurant. He stood when Ray approached. You're early, Ray said. Do-yoon nodded. I was nearby. The menu said open, though he didn't seem to be reading it. Sungil arrived a moment later, pushing through the door. Daniel followed just behind him. Did you guys start without me? Sungil said, already moving toward the table. You're just on time, Ray replied. That's disappointing. I was expecting the grill to be ready. He dropped into the seat across from Ray. Daniel sat beside him. Do-yoon opened the menu again. Is there anything you don't eat? He asked, glancing briefly at Ray before shifting his attention across the table. Daniel gave a small shake of his head. No, Sungil said. We're good. Do-yoon nodded and began ordering. He moved through it cleanly, naming dishes, adjusting portions, checking once more with Ray before finishing. Sungil leaned back, his attention already moving between them. So, he said, looking toward Ray. Who's the sports model? Ray glanced at him briefly. I can't open name. Fine. I'll see it when it's done. Sungil shifted toward Daniel. You've been busy. Just work, Daniel said. Nothing different. That sounds like a lie. It's not. The first dishes arrived. The grill was set in place between them, heat rising immediately as it was turned on. Plates followed, meat arranged cleanly, vegetables set to the side. Before anyone reached for it, Sungil spoke again. Don't tell me we're not drinking. He looked between them, then toward Daniel. Soju or makgeolli? Daniel didn't take long. Soju. Good. Do-yoon reached for the tongs. He placed the meat on the grill, adjusting it once so it lay flat. When the soju was placed on the table, Ray poured to each glass. Sungil raised his glass. One shot. Daniel lifted his as well. They drank. Sungil finished his in one go, setting the glass down with a soft tap against the table. Daniel didn't. He took a sip, then lowered the glass, leaving the rest. Sungil glanced at him. I don't usually drink it like that, Daniel said. Suit yourself. He poured again, this time only for himself. The meat had begun to brown at the edges. Sungil reached for the tongs first this time, turning one piece before it needed it, then shifting another slightly to the side. Not yet, Do-yoon said. Sungil glanced at him, then back at the grill. You do it then. He left it where it was. Daniel watched for a moment, then reached in, picking up the tongue without interrupting either of them. He turned one piece and cut it into bite-sized pieces. The food continued to cook. Sungil reached for a lettuce leaf, flattening against his palm as he added meat, a slice of garlic, something from the side dish. Halfway through, Daniel reached in beside him. The timing didn't align. Their hands crossed briefly over the same space. Sungil pulled back first, letting Daniel finish. Daniel built the lettuce some, folding it once, then again. He passed it across. It landed just short of Sungil's mouth. Sungil reached the rest of the way and took it. Daniel had already moved his hand back. As Sungil took a bite, a small drop slipped from the edge, not enough to notice until it landed. Not on the table, on Daniel's pants. Daniel looked down. He wiped once with the napkin, then set the napkin down. I'll be back. He stood as he said it. Sungil stayed where he was for a moment, his hand hovering near the grill before he set the tongs down, then pushed his chair back. I'll go with him. No one stopped him. The sound of the grill remained the same. Ray picked up his glass, finishing what was left. Do-yoon looked at him. You seem to be a bit off. Ray reached for the edge of the table, adjusting one of the plates. It's just the next shoot. Stressing me out. Do-yoon held his gaze a second longer, then nodded. Eat first. Ray reached for the meat. Across from him, the empty seats remained where they had been. What remained of the table was minimal. Empty dishes, glasses pushed slightly out of place. The heat from earlier no longer rising the same way. Ray leaned back slightly, his hand resting near the glass as he looked across the table. Daniel hadn't moved much, his attention still on his pants. The stain was still there. Sungil shifted in his seat, then stood. Let's go change. Daniel nodded, pushing his chair back. As he stepped past Sungil, his hand settled briefly at Sungil's waist. Sungil didn't react to it. He turned back toward the table instead. We're going to change, he said. See you guys at the club. Ray gave a nod. Do-yoon did the same. There was nothing to hold them there longer. Ray and Do-yoon stepped out into the night. Ray glanced down the road, then toward the incline leading up. Do you want to go up to the old city wall? Do-yoon nodded once. They turned off the main street. Do-yoon reached for Ray's hand. Ray didn't pull away. He looked down briefly, then forward again. They walked like that for a while. The path curved upward, the city opening in pieces between the trees and the wall. They reached the wall and stopped. The skyline spread out below them. Ray rested his hand on the stone, looking out. When are you going to join me for a run? Do-yoon glanced at him. You still doing mornings? Weekends? Do-yoon considered it for a second. Tomorrow works. Good. Do-yoon turned slightly toward Ray. just enough to shift the angle. Ray followed it. The distance narrowed. From somewhere below, laughter carried up. Ray's gaze shifted first as he pulled back. Then he pushed off the wall, stepping back onto the path. Let's go. Jiho stood in front of the mirror, the bathroom light brighter than the rest of the apartment. The mask had already set across his skin, edges drawing near his jaw. He leaned in slightly, tilting his head just enough to check the line near his eye. He pressed slightly once, then let it go. His phone lit up on the counter. He glanced at it. He rinsed his hand first, drying them slowly before picking the phone up. Messages stacked, but nothing new that needed him. He locked the screen and set it back down, then reached for a towel, wiping the mask away in clean strokes. He moved into the bedroom, pulling a shirt from the rack. Something fitted, something sexy. He changed, adjusting the collar once, checked himself in the mirror. Then he smoothed it once with his hand. The line outside the club moved quickly. Ray stepped in first, Do-yoon just behind him, the music settling around them as the door closed. The club was already full. Lights moved across the space, catching briefly on faces. Ray scanned once. Lucas was there, near the bar, angled towards someone. His posture stayed easy, one hand resting against the counter, his attention moving in and out of what was in front of him. Lucas didn't look over. Ray moved toward an open table. Do-yoon followed, taking the seat beside him. 2 drinks came, placed down between them. Do-yoon lifted his glass first, taking a measured sip. Ray followed, slower. At the bar, Lucas shifted slightly, reaching into his pocket. He checked something briefly, then set it down on the counter in front of him. Jiho arrived a few minutes later. He spotted Ray easily, stepping into the space, his presence settling into the table, as if it had always been there. "You're late," Ray said. Jiho glanced at him once, then toward Do-yoon, acknowledging both with a nod. He leaned back slightly, picking up his glass. "So," he said, looking between them. "How was the double date?" Ray glanced at him and smiled, taking a sip of whiskey. "Where the hell is Sungil?" They went to change clothes. Jiho paused for a second. "I don't want to know." He reached for the bottle, pouring. "But he's coming, right?" "Yeah." Jiho lifted his glass, already done with it. The door opened, and Sungil came in. Daniel followed just behind him, his look reset. Everything sitting clean and in place as if nothing had happened earlier. "You miss me," Sungil said, dropping into the seat. Daniel didn't sit. He paused beside the table, his attention already shifting past them. "Be right back." Sungil waved it off without looking. Daniel moved toward the bar. Ray gaze followed. Daniel stepped in next to Lucas. Something passed between them. Then Lucas turned slightly, moving away from the bar. Daniel returned to the table, sliding into his seat as if nothing had interrupted the flow. Ray's gaze moved across the room and settled on Lucas moving. He was already walking toward the exit. Lucas was already moving through the crowd when Ray set his glass down and stood, saying he wasn't feeling well, just loud enough for the table to hear. Sungil paused mid-sentence, half turning toward him. "You what?" Jiho only glanced once, not questioning it. "Go, before you make it worse." Do-yoon was already up, falling into step beside Ray. "Was there something at the dinner?" Ray nodded. They moved through the crowd, the table closing behind them as if nothing had shifted. By the time they reached the door, Lucas was near the exit. Ray picked up his pace, the music cutting off for a second as the door opened. Lucas was a few steps ahead when Ray cut up. "Hey!" Lucas stopped and turned. "Heading out?" "Yeah." The door opened again, behind them as Do-yoon stepped out. And for a moment, the 3 of them stood there. Do-yoon looked between them, not asking, not interrupting. Ray let out a breath, then said it simply. "Aren't you near where I am?" Lucas held his gaze a second, then nodded. A taxi slowed at the curb, Do-yoon lifting a hand as it pulled in. He opened the door and got in first, Ray following without breaking stride, and Lucas sliding in after them, the door closing as the taxi pulled away from the curb. The taxi moved steadily once it pulled away, the city passing in layers of light and shadows across the window. Do-yoon sat forward, his gaze moving between the road ahead. At some point, Do-yoon reached across, his hand finding Ray's. Ray didn't pull away. Lucas noticed, shifting slightly, as his leg pressed closer against Ray's. Taxi slowed at light and came to a stop. Do-yoon reached for the handle, then paused just enough to turn toward Ray. Call me in the morning. We can postpone the run. Ray looked at him. Hope you get better. Thanks. He stepped out, the door closing behind him as the taxi pulled forward again. The space between Ray and Lucas shifting as the car moved on. Ray didn't turn, but his hand moved once along the seat, stopping where the gap between them had been. Lucas' hand was already there. Ray placed his hand over it. Lucas looked at him. The taxi slowed and pulled to the side. Lucas stepped out first, Ray right after him. The door closing behind them as someone brushed past, shoulder catching lightly against Ray's, before continuing on. Sorry, the voice said, already closing the door. The taxi pulled off. Ray turned toward Lucas. Stay tonight at my place. Lucas held his gaze, then nodded. Ray didn't slow as he crossed the apartment entrance, pushing the door open and heading inside, Lucas following without needing to be told. The lobby held just enough light to see by. Ray moved straight to the elevator and pressed the button, his hand dropping back to his side as they waited. When the door opened, they stepped in together, the space narrowing around them, close enough that neither of them adjusted. The door slid shut. Ray turned, the words already there before he decided whether to say them. Lucas didn't let him finish. No need. The distance closed in the same breath, Ray's hand catching at Lucas's collar, pulling him in as the kiss landed. Lucas met it just as directly, his hand coming up along Ray's side, holding there as the lift continued to move. The door slid open again. The kiss broke on the moment. Ray stepped out first. Lucas followed, the hallway empty, the pause between them not holding long enough to settle. Ray moved without slowing, unlocking the door and pushing it open. As he stepped inside, Lucas came in behind him. The door closed. Ray turned back to Lucas. This time, nothing interrupted it. Some moments didn't slow down once they began. Some choices didn't wait to be explained. Do-yoon stayed steady, moving forward the way things were meant to go. Lucas didn't push anything forward, holding his place, letting things come to him without needing to name them. Ray stopped adjusting to what was in front of him, choosing instead to move toward what didn't fit. They crossed the same night, just not in the same direction. Thank you for listening to Where Nights Don't End, Chapter 4, The Night Turns. Stay with us for the next chapter, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more stories on gay audiobooks. YouTube membership is now open. Behind closed doors, early access to upcoming stories, occasional behind the story exclusives. If you want to support me, please do join in. Thank you.